Hi everybody. Welcome to a very interesting session about the future of Zcash. Where should Zcash go with its use cases? How to go beyond ZEC? We have today a panel of specialists in the space coming from many different projects, doing many different interesting things in the space. And I hope we can all together have a conversation that dives into what Zcash can become and bring to the world. I'm Jonathan Rouach. I'm CEO of Qedit, Executive Director at zkproof.org. And we are contributing to Zcash with Zcash Shielded Assets. And with me today, I will go in the order that they appear for me. We have Christopher, Kit, Brian, James, Henry, and Alex. And we will go first. You will learn what projects they work on and what they're doing in privacy. Many of you guys with me in the panel have several projects that you work on in parallel. All these slashes on your roles, this is very common. So please present what you do. And then we will have questions about where we see Zcash going. Let's start with Christopher Goes.
Yes, hello everyone. I can't see you, but thank you for joining wherever you're joining from. My name is Christopher. I work on the Anoma and Namada projects, both of which Anoma is a distributed operating system. Namada is a sort of shielded asset hub for assets in Cosmos and other IBC connected chains in the multi-chain. Both of those projects, of course, draw upon and build upon Zcash, even back to Zero Cash, Zcash's pioneering research and development in applied cryptography. My other random Zcash claim to fame is that I once wrote a Zcash block explorer called Zchain. And then the thing I wanted to do was write the block explorer, not operate a block explorer. So I handed it off to someone else. I think it still existed for a while, but I haven't tried it recently. Maybe someone in the chat knows.
So right before we continue, to demonstrate the level of detail, Anoma, Namada, give us just a tiny bit more juice. What's the the particularity of each of those projects for those who don't know?
Yes, so Anoma is a distributed operating system, meaning that it takes a bunch of computers and tries to make them look like a single abstract computer that brings two key notions into play. The first is information flow control. Information flow control is a way to declaratively specify what kind of information you want to be revealed to different participants on the network as your, as in our case, intents. Anoma applications are written with intents. Are processed. I would describe information flow control as kind of like the declarative counterpart to privacy or programmable privacy. So information flow control is a way for you as a user and an application developer to specify at a policy level what kinds of, what you want to be revealed to whom and under which conditions, and then different cryptographic mechanisms or privacy mechanisms, such as zero knowledge proofs and things as simple as regular cryptographic signatures can be used to implement that. And the other part which Anoma brings is heterogeneous trust, meaning that different participants in the network can make different choices as to who they want to trust, what they want to trust them to do, what kinds of assumptions they want to make about the behaviors of other participants. And the network can sort of compute over these trust assumptions and figure out which users can interact with one another. So imagine if you had a blockchain wallet and you selected, like, I trust these 15 chains, like you can treat US, certain assets on each of these chains as fungible or something like this. Anoma allows you to express that and thus sort of admits a greater deal of interoperability and user interactions with knowledge of these kinds of trust preferences. Namada is a shielded asset hub. What do we mean by that? We mean that it's designed to allow you to shield your assets at rest, keep them on Namada, earn some shielded set rewards potentially, and use them in shielded actions on lots of other Cosmos chains, ranging from Osmosis to the Cosmos hub to potentially Penumbra even in the future, I hope. Our thesis there is trying to make it easy for users to get privacy at rest, which is also how they provide privacy to other users in the shielded set while taking the actions that they want to take when they want to take them with as minimal UX friction as possible.
Amazing. Thank you. Kit Sturgeon, tell us about you and your projects at a similar level of detail.
Sure. Okay. So my name's Kit Sturgeon, and I've been a Zcasher since near the beginning when I bought some ZEC without KYC from Binance when they were a young company, and I actually knew about Zuko before that because we were building a distributed file system and looking at Tahoe Laughs, and that's how I first encountered that. Not Zuko personally, but that part of, and I was like, oh, the same guy's building this blockchain. That's awesome. So we are building so I have slid into the Avalanche world, and I've been there since just before launch, and very interested in that the Avalanche platform because it's got worldwide scalability and very fast time to transaction finality built into the platform. And at the same time, they're sadly lacking in privacy and selective disclosure features that are necessary if they want to fulfill their mission of tokenizing the world's assets. And because in every business transaction that I can think of, those are two elements: privacy and selective disclosure. So that's how the project came to mind, and then I had that opportunity to pitch it. So I started on the forum. I had a team assembled, and eventually got funded by Zcash community grants to start building. And it's a distributed permissionless system with its own token. I don't know, well, probably people don't know too much about Avalanche, so it's I'm doing a presentation tomorrow, a short presentation just to run through it. But basically, it's like Cosmos, it's L1s that can talk to each other, and a very fast protocol between them, lightweight protocol. And we're using one of those L1s where you can have your own token and make it permissionless as the bridge. So that L1 will not, and that bridge is called Red Bridge. We started calling it ZAVX, and then some people were like, we like the name Red Bridge better. And I was like, well, that sounds good to me. So, and we're Red Dev. So so we did this name switch. And so we're in the middle of building it, and I have really exciting news today because I can announce that we just received funding from the Avalanche Foundation. So now we have funding from both sides of the bridge, which if you're going to build a bridge, that's what you need. So I am really super happy about that. And we just announced that at noon Eastern time today. And
I hope your bridge doesn't collapse under all this funding.
Yeah, trust me. It's both organizations are, they don't overfund you.
No, they don't fund easily. So it means that
we have enough promises
you have promises to both communities.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I had that from the beginning before any money was on the table. I mean, that was why I'm strongly committed to both communities. I mean, to put a serious spin on that joke, but in all seriousness, this is, I'm, a builder, not a number go up guy, and it's a beautiful thing to connect different two ecosystems that have complementary use cases. So that's what we're building, and there's a thread on the forum, and there's a test UX I'd love feedback from, and I think that's probably enough, right?
That's good. Now. Congrats.
Okay, thanks.
Bryan, you're next. Bryan Gillespie, tell us about your project, yourself, but first unmute yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, it's Bryan Gillespie. Not a problem. That's the common mispronunciation. So Bryan Gillespie, I do applied cryptography at Inversed Tech. It's a relatively new cryptography consulting group in the privacy tech sphere. I come from an academic math background. I started studying cryptography probably about 5 years ago. That's my first foray into the Zcash ecosystem. I was really interested in the Snark technology that they were using, and I just loved reading through the blog posts that were going through the details of how all that fit together. And it's really the gateway drug, I think, of many theoreticians into this space. Like, it's just a fantastic technology. And I still think that Zcash is like the proper use case, like the baseline of these applications, and I like to see where it branches off from there. So about 2 years ago, I got into the space professionally, started working at Inverse Tech, and one of my first projects actually at Inverse was a research grant from the Zcash Foundation to study programmability and privacy in this space, in particular.
Shout out to Inverse Tech founder. That's a very special person there. Well,
yes, absolutely.
Who is that?
Daniel Benarock is one of the co-founders of Inverse, along with RL. And he has obviously been involved in various parts of the ecosystem. Was formerly at Qedit. Jonathan is a member.
But most importantly, he's very prominent in the Zcash ecosystem as the person that brought to the table the idea of launching ZSAs, and also one of the people that created ZK Proof.
Yes, absolutely. So
he's been great organization.
Extensively involved in the community. One of the co-authors on this paper that we put together, systematization of knowledge on this programmable privacy, and this project in particular really pushed me in the direction of thinking about what programmability is useful for, and like how it could fit into Zcash as a protocol. My feeling broadly about all of it is that there's really good technology out there. I think everybody can agree that ZK has just continued to compound in quality and tooling and usability, like enough great proof systems that you can really extend a blockchain protocol's functionalities if that's what you want the blockchain to be. And I feel like that's a question that's worth exploring at some point. Is for a protocol like Zcash, is programmability something that is useful and a priority? And like consensus on this question is a really big question that's of interest to me. So yeah, so that's my background.
We'll put this one in the stack and try to get to it. Thank you, Brian. Next on, James from Brave.
How are you doing, everyone? James Mudgett. I'm the vice president of Web3 at Brave. This relationship really started 3 years ago over barbecue with Josh in Austin. And so, over the last year and a half, we've been working on shipping Zcash in our wallet. And next month, we'll be launching the shielded support. But if you're not familiar with Brave, we're a roughly 80 million monthly active user, privacy-focused browser, privacy-focused search engine. We'll soon be hitting 100 million. And really, my goal has been to build the multi-chain crypto wallet natively in the browser, both for web compatibility, but I think the more important thing here is the privacy alignment between Brave and private payments. I think that's important for getting mass crypto adoption for commerce on the internet. So looking forward to what we end up doing in future iterations of it, and thank you for having me on.
Amazing. Thanks for joining and immediately bringing this announcement number 2 to this panel. So it's a big one, right? The listing, yes, quote unquote, of ZEC on Brave. It's huge. Yeah, it's privacy crypto, built into this widely distributed product, and we think more people will find benefit in that, both for transacting privately between individuals, or even expanding to payments on the web for commerce. So, do you mind if I assign you a sort of role on this panel, which is when we talk about anything that's like forward-looking, please give us the perspective of what it would look like for the user when they click on it in Brave, or is it like we're dreaming and it's and you guys are talking about stuff that's never going to land mainstream browsers? Just have that question always in mind, and if you have like an insight on that, please feel free to.
Yeah, I'll try not to like speculate too much on future stuff, but you know, I'll
speculate.
Make it clear if it's
speculate.
Like, if it's something near term or it's more of a long term vision.
James, this is crypto. You have to speculate. All right, Henry. Thank you, Henry de Valence.
Hey, great to be here. So a little bit about me. I am a cypherpunk. Started off doing cryptography research and engineering post Snowden, and then worked on a sort of sequence of sort of progressively sort of moved up the stack from low-level crypto primitives. A few years ago, I worked on Zcash, actually at the Zcash Foundation, which was really rewarding. And we built the first part of Zebra at that time. And then after I was working at the Zcash Foundation, I left, did my sort of time in the wilderness, thought about privacy, blockchain privacy, and at the time it was sort of right after the DeFi summer. So I was kind of looking out at the space and seeing like, hey, there's this like Venn diagram of a bunch of like really interesting projects that are getting like real traction with users. And then there's sort of like all of the privacy projects, and it's like currently it's just like two circles. And so how would we fix that? And that led to thinking about how could you integrate privacy and DeFi? And how could you use that to build a situation where privacy could outcompete transparency, right? Rather than just saying like, hey, you know, everybody should use these private things because they're private and that's good. And, you know, maybe in 10 years, we'll have some kind of like horrible, you know, authoritarian dictatorship or something. And similarly far-fetched and remote outcomes, and instead have people get concrete value out of privacy at the moment that they're choosing to use the tool. So that ended up being this whole rabbit hole. It led to the creation of Penumbra, which is a multi-asset privacy chain with an integrated DEX. So Penumbra is the first place that you can do on-chain trading with private strategies. The market state overall is public. So it's like, you know, thinking about a centralized exchange where you can see all of the different trades, you can see what's the state of the liquidity. But unlike a centralized exchange, it's trustless and verifiable. But unlike other DEXs that exist, you get the privacy benefit of people can't see your specific trades. So Penumbra is also in the Cosmos ecosystem. We natively connect to other chains with IBC, and the IBC integration in Penumbra is integrated into the design of the shielded pool. So Penumbra doesn't have transparent accounts the same way that, say, Zcash has the transparent part and the shielded part. For Penumbra, we only have the shielded pool, and the transparent pool effectively is like every other chain that we connect to. So transferring tokens in is actually entering the privacy boundary. And that feels like a really good kind of conceptual platform. But so yeah, you can take whatever asset you want, transfer it into Penumbra, it's recorded privately, and then you can do private trading.
Amazing. Feels like this is already the second or third project where ZSA and Zcash have a lot to learn from. You're kind of already advanced on the path of holding assets in a shielded way, and already the next phase of trading with them, it's going to be relevant to think to inform where Zcash could be going. Amazing, thank you. Alex, your turn.
Hi guys, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm Aaluxx Myth. I'm Maya Protocol's co-founder. I'm a permissionless maxi, and I come from Latin America, where you know, totalitarian dictatorships are not something that might happen in the future. They just happen. They just pop up any given year in some part of Latin America, affecting friends of ours and loved one of ours. So I think we're more conscious than many other places about the controls we give to governments. So yeah, I set out to build my protocol because I loved what Thorchain was doing. My protocol is a friendly fork of Thorchain. Think Uniswap, which is an AMM, but across chains. So this would mean, you know, native BTC to native ETH to native, you know, Avax, new kit that we're mentioning, Avalanche. So there's a lot to do there, and we've been working on for a few months on the Zcash integration that we're very excited for moving forward. That would essentially make it so much easier to get into the Zcash ecosystem and compose it with the rest of the blockchain industry. Jonathan, you were mentioning to James that, you know, what would these things look like on Brave? It would be awesome because you could just like swap BTC to ZEC very easily. And the reason I'm so excited about ZEC and Zcash is that I've come to the realization that humans are very biased to other humans. So the only way to really enforce complete permissionlessness is through privacy. A human and a set of humans, if they have information about people doing transactions, it tends to happen that they start to insert their biases on whether this transaction should be valid or not. Whereas when you cannot tell because it's private, you remove the possibility of bias entirely. So I think privacy is very important if we're to build the permissionless future that blockchain set out to build. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm excited for Zcash. Next Z conference is in the agenda is me explaining Maya in detail. So I'm just here more for the panel discussion.
Amazing, thank you. So thanks all of you for sharing your projects. But of course, you're not here to just because of your projects. You're here because we're in a Zcash conference, and you all have a very strong tie to this community. So I guess the first question would be how you perceive or describe the Zcash mission. What is the role of Zcash in the world? Why does it exist? And is this mission accomplished? Is this mission does it stand a chance to be accomplished? Does it miss big pieces, small pieces? Why does Zcash have a place in this big world of cryptocurrencies? And this is addressed to all of you, but the one with the strongest opinion seems to be Kit. Go ahead.
The hot seat. Okay, I'll give this. I'll start, but I'm not going to do a comprehensive. You know, Zcash can be many things to many people, but at its core, I believe Zcash is the right way to do Bitcoin. I mean, that's the bottom line was that Bitcoin was meant to have privacy, and it just the tech didn't exist at that time, and that's why it was founded, was to fix that problem. And So, but it's also the OG privacy coin, and has carries with it that gravitas and also weight, and is shedding some of that technical debt as we go with Zebra, and so that means that it's so I believe at its heart, the Zcash, in talking to Tatiana, who's done research about where the use cases are at Electric Coin Company for Zcash, is peer-to-peer private payments is like the core use case for Zcash. So at the same time, we're building a bridge which I think expands some of the use cases, but it doesn't get in the way of the core mission, and in fact may help it scale. In Jack's opening talk, he mentioned side chains to accelerate things, and this is across a bridge is a side chain, or many side chains that can be running the Zcash virtual machine and with value transfer, and then operating at much faster speeds. So in one way, Zcash is Bitcoin with the right way, and another way, there's a modernization of it that can. That's my 2 cents. I'd love to hear what other people think. So.
Interesting. Who else has a? Okay, Alex.
I can chime in. I'd say also Zcash is normalizing privacy, and I think it's achieving that. In that, when you think about other privacy chains, they usually seem a bit more daunting, and I think Zcash has treaded that line very well of being easy to approach, easy to onboard, easy to get started, but also offers complete privacy in an also very easy to use way. And with all of the work going on with Sashi and making things more approachable, like if you compare to Monero, for a more normal person, for instance, I'm not a cryptographer like Bryan or a cyberpunk like Henry. Monero is daunting to me, and I've definitely went into it a little bit because I think it's an important project, but Zcash is just so much familiar. Like it says, it's Bitcoin, but doing what it should have done in the first place, and it's familiar. So I would say normalizing privacy is something that it's setting out to do. It's accomplished a lot already. There's much yet to be accomplished, but I think the team, I was in January there in Cancun for the talks with Josh, and I think they have the right vision to accomplish it. So I'm just very excited to see what else.
I think yesterday in the roadmap talk, Strad was saying that if he had a magic wand, he would remove transparent tools and just keep the shielded part. So the path is progressing towards normalizing privacy even inside Zcash. Certainly, the move to Orchard allowed for the ZEC to pop in shielded, and this is a big property of this ecosystem. Anyone else has a view on what is the mission of Zcash, and is it succeeding in this mission? Bryan, and then Henry.
Yeah, so one aspect that I would also bring before as a cryptographer is that Zcash really sets a gold standard for the certainty and kind of mathematical assurance of the cryptography being used. One of my first projects at Inversed was doing an audit for a code base that was forking the Zcash sapling protocol. So as part of that, I had to dive into the protocol specification documents for Zcash to some extent.
That's Ironfish, right?
Ironfish, that's right. That's what we were auditing. It's a good protocol. They were doing some interesting stuff similar to ZSA, supporting multi-assets. So good ideas there. But diving into that protocol specification doc was just eye-opening from the level of care and caution in designing a spec that just covers every single detail with security arguments. Like it's just a level of detail you don't see elsewhere in the ecosystem, and I think it's like something that really reflects well on the community and is a role that Zcash plays more broadly in the privacy ecosystem.
Henry.
Yeah, just to echo or add on to Brian's point there, I'll share an anecdote of a few months ago. I was catching up with some cryptographer who I'll leave nameless, who's sort of more from the academic side, and was sharing this anecdote of, oh, I thought like I could go and like learn about ZK and see if we could do some stuff there. And I have to admit, I was kind of arrogant about it. Like I thought, oh, well, I'm the academic and I'll go and like, see all this stuff. And then I went and looked at like the Zcash specs, and it's like, wow, this is really good stuff. So I think that yeah, the work really sort of shines this beacon, and I think that's kind of part of the mission of Zcash, and also of like the broader sort of privacy community, is to demonstrate that it is possible to build permissionless systems for economic coordination that respect privacy and human rights. And I think a useful analogy here is with end-to-end encryption. In some theoretical sense, like we had the ability to do end-to-end encryption for a very, very long time, until finally in the 2010s, we saw actual wide-scale adoption, and now it's just the default, right? Signal showed the way, but we also have WhatsApp, iMessage, all these systems have end-to-end encryption just built in, and it's accepted that that's the default. There's a really amazing time capsule documentary that Andrew Miller shared on YouTube from 1997 of it's an NHK documentary about the first financial crypto conference. And in it, there's this section where there's some law professor from Georgetown saying about how like, oh, we can't have encryption because like businesses might like lose access to their data, and that would be bad. So the only thing to do is to have like a government backdoor in every computer. And when you say that today, it sounds insane. And I think we're going to see the same thing happen with financial privacy. This is obviously not like, oh, like every transaction is sort of completely unauditable and untraceable. There's obviously going to need to be like disclosure requirements and all this stuff. But I think that in the future, we are going to look back on encryption for economic coordination the same way that we now view encryption for messaging, where all the old arguments of like, oh, well, you can't have that in a society and all this stuff are just seem completely out of touch now. And I think that part of the role of Zcash and the Zcash community is actually showing with a technical demonstration, yes, you can build systems that respect user privacy, that respect rights, and they actually work. And it's going to be a long road to making those systems be as easy to use as a transparent alternative. We also saw that with encrypted messaging, but we're going to get there.
So I have a follow-up question on that. I apologize for turning green every 10 minutes. I sit in the Bitcoin embassy, and the pace of Bitcoin is 10 minutes. So every time there's a block, I turn green. It's just the way it is. I would like to follow what you just said, Henry, with a question to James. Do people really care about privacy? When companies are forming in the space, very quickly they reached the point where they asked themselves if their own thesis was biased, that privacy is such a fundamental thing that, of course, the moment you put out a product that makes it easy or makes it useful, people will just hold on to it and use it immediately. You talked about numbers that are in the browser world not that large, but in the privacy world, they're very large. Actually, it's beginning to $100 million is already quite big. I'm wondering, how do you sell privacy to people that just don't care, and how do you go on to normalize it as something that is happening today?
Yeah. So I would say everyone cares about privacy, really to the degree that they've been impacted by something that invaded that privacy. And it could be, on any sort of different fronts in all of our daily lives, right? But it's always been a tough one to nail down. And you've got, societal sort of sentiment shifts towards, one tech or another. But really in talking about tech, privacy and tech, name one banking or payment system that allows people to inspect some other strangers purchases, toiletries, whatever. So when do you see mass adoption on crypto? Is it going to be with Bitcoin and sort of this public ledger, or are people going to sort of still apply the same their same beliefs of privacy to crypto? And so maybe that's why it hasn't quite taken on the masses as it should be. And that's sort of a reverse question here to you and others is what is the missing piece here? And I like some of the points that Henry made about privacy defaults. I do think you do have an advantage in being able to stay nimble by still having some mechanisms where you do need to meet with regulators and be able to satisfy subpoena on handling AML and other things like that. So I do think that there's power in the way that Zcash has structured itself initially. But I do think it is going to become a question for more and more people as more and more systems start to move to crypto, and really I think having that be sort of more of a standard versus I'll just pull out my credit card. Well, you may end up doing it with crypto. More people are going to start to demand these things because they will be more impacted.
Did we already see in the world the first time where a disclosure that shouldn't have happened was the source of some really bad things? What I mean by that is, are there examples out there where that we can talk about here where some movement in crypto generated an outcome that if it happened, if it was on Zcash, that wouldn't happen? Do you have like examples like this?
Well, I mean,
Henry?
nothing specific, but I could just say that like you definitely bring in a lot of new design paradigms into crypto, which can make it really challenging for your new users that are just getting into the space. Disclosures are super important because I think you do need to sort of manage expectations. You're sort of trying to meet in the middle between what is a complex user interface built around the tech, but how do you sort of continue to nudge it into something that's easy for everyone to understand? So I do think there are times where people don't realize that they should have saved their seed or not screen shared, or shared it on YouTube. And then they've lost all their funds. So I do think there'll continue to be sort of ways to mitigate problems like that, whether it's pushing seed phrases out of wallets and with other mechanics, or using getting more people adopting hardware wallets. But disclosures are important. It's definitely happened. I don't know of a specific case that I could point to you right now. But...
Thanks. Henry, you raised your hand.
Yeah, so the example that I would point to is the case of Constitution DAO. So for people who sort of weren't tracking it at the time, this was a sudden sort of flash mob effort. There was at the time an original copy of the US Constitution that was going up for auction. And so some crypto people said like, hey, wouldn't it be, funny and also cool if we pooled the crypto community to like collectively buy a copy of the Constitution for like the people and all this.
You
And
could say that they ended up buying the Constitution in another way, but that's a different conversation.
so what happened though with Constitution DAO is they were running an on-chain fundraiser to then place bids in an auction at Sotheby's. And like the thing about auctions is if your counterparty in the auction knows exactly how much you are able to bid in real time because they can watch the inflows into your wallet, you will not win the auction. Like you just will not win. And so that's exactly what happened. It ended up getting bought by Ken Griffith, the Citadel CEO. And so the Constitution did not end up in the hands of the people because there was information disclosure. And that I think is like a really great example to me because it's not just about this sort of peer-to-peer payment, right? Like I could already do a payment using my bank and it's like not entirely private, but it's like private to the world, right? So like the marginal benefit is already kind of, lower. What that example shows that I think is really interesting is a transformative use case that's only possible with crypto, right? You can't just like have some sudden flash mob crowdfund thing with TradFi rails. It doesn't work. And so that's an example that I like because it's showing like, okay, we have this transformative use case and it's almost there. It's on the brink and we can see that it just falls flat because privacy is not there.
So take me a few years forward, 5 years from now, collectively. How does the world look when Zcash has even progressed on its mission? Hopefully, NU7 in Zcash has enabled ZSAs and even maybe asset swaps, and bridges are in place to attract assets to the Zcash ecosystem. If that was in place, do you think that these almost cases would mature into no, this is how things are done now. We got this solved. So try paint that picture, if you will.
Yeah, I think that if we could have, sorry, go.
Oh, I just want to add on to what Henry. I love that example of the Constitution DAO.
It's amazing, yes.
And it's a beautiful example of individuals coming together. And coming from this Avalanche world, which is very different from the Zcash world, it's very business focused. Very, how do we bring blockchain? How do we bring crypto? How do we move the rails from Wall Street to crypto? That's a lot of what the thinking that's going on in the Avalanche world is focused on. And so it brings a different perspective because in Zcash, I've been deep in the Zcash world for a couple of years, and the theme is individual rights, individual privacies, what individuals can do together, and that's true and good. And on the Avalanche side, I see all these business use cases, and for me, I think you almost can protect the individual rights by bringing in the business use cases, and I think that's what's happened with the internet and with just needing HTTPS, TLS for protection of company websites, and not so that they don't get man in the middle attacked, and customers have a good customer experience. Banking can happen, and I think I see an opportunity with connecting these on the Avalanche side that maybe people in the Zcash community aren't focused on. So let me just I think one of the most important messages I can bring, and I tell you what, I didn't think when I thought of this, my first Zcon 4, so a couple of Zcons of 4, and I was just like, I can't say this now because, you know, I'm the new guy, you know, as far as, but now that I've been here a bit, I see this really strongly. And this is the thing, is that every single business use case of money transferring involves elements of privacy. Every single one. And also the other side of that coin is selective disclosure. And in Zcash, I believe we focus on privacy, and sometimes selective disclosure is like, well, yeah, but we don't want to talk about that. But it's in the core of Zcash with not just with viewing keys, but with deeper levels of possibilities of disclosing that this transaction is at least this amount. So, for instance, a crypto exchange could, you know, do a verification of funds that we have at least $10 billion in this wallet, but they really have 100 billion, and no one needs to know that. So they can disclose just part of that with Zcash, and you could have huge huge amounts of usage on the Zcash chain with this kind of gradated security, and then along comes the strength of the, like you're saying, Henry, the inevitable. Like, this is just where we're headed, and no one's going to think twice about it because everyone's doing it. And of course, you need these features. You have these, you know, at the beginning, I think when cryptography, you know, when somebody had to export cryptography on paper, you know, to make it legal to export in those days, I think the, you know, powers that be were really concerned about edge cases. And as you bring in, and the edge cases sort of dominated mind share. And so what we need to do, I believe, to bring Zcash mainstream is to sort of, and I think Zcash is well on the way to doing this, is push those edge cases aside and say, hey, these are the mainstream uses for this. This can be used, you have to use this. If you're going to do this, you need privacy and you need selective disclosure. So, and here's a great stack that does that, or stacks in the case of these two smart contracts, also privacy chains that are represented here by Christopher and Henry. So, so that's and then, okay, so into the future, I don't know. I think that sort of answers the into the future question, where that's just normal, but that's important. I think just that business perspective is so important. Yeah.
Thank you, Kit. Maybe we can try to pull some of that future from the projects that we have represented here. Maybe Alex, when I think there's elements in the Maya system that might inform what could Zcash be used for. You have the underlying layer that is strongly demonstrated as private, and the level of engineering for Zcash is, like people described, I think Bryan described it, very meticulous, and we have very strong basis. But what does it look like once you add use cases that we can see in other blockchains?
So I think the great thing about decentralized building is the part about composability. When you see any centralized party build something, they typically are very protectionist. They want to cut off, they want to make everything in-house, and they want to have as much isolation as they can to compete. And the reason why I believe over the long run, I'm not sure if this is 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, what we're building in blockchain will ultimately succeed over TradeFi, is that in the building of open source decentralized projects, the opposite is true. You want to be as easily accessible as transparent, as open as possible, to build together with the rest. So where the TradeFi space is competitive, the DeFi space is cooperative. Now, it doesn't mean that there is exclusively collaboration. There's also competition. That's why I like the word cooperative, because it still has some competitive characteristics, because people do ultimately have feet and can move to one chain or another depending on what they like about one or another, or what they need from one or another. But in facilitating this movement, a chain is more successful. So all of this is to say that Maya brings this possibility for people to vote with their feet where they previously couldn't. And I believe Zcash is building something very valuable. Again, like I said, very approachable, but very useful as well. You guys are building so many use cases, and having the possibility of any one person that's perhaps stuck in Bitcoin, perhaps stuck in ETH, they have no possibility in their local jurisdiction to move because they're in an underserved area of the world. The fact that they will be able to permissionlessly move to Zcash and enjoy the benefits that ZEC provides, I think is powerful. So yeah, ultimately, I think Zcash is doing the right thing in inviting this big panel of different builders, of different teams. This is not just Zcash core doing what they believe is best. You're being open about, okay, what do other projects need that we can build to be better. And the thing is, any one TradeFi or central exchange needs to compete against the whole system, not one. And it's like a whack-a-mole game where they can focus on competing with one thing, but there's just so many projects, so many things building together in this cooperative environment that it's very hard that they will be able to outcompete us. Now, I do believe like the central exchange experience peaked last cycle. I think right now we come to expect what a central exchange can offer, and it's the best it will ever be in my view. Whereas the decentralized experience keeps getting better and better and better. And you see this with Sashi, you see this with all the wallets that support Maya today. You see with how things are just getting simpler. Like my dad can now use crypto. He's almost 70 years old. My goal is that my mom can use it. We're not there yet. But the decentralized experience is getting better and better and better because we're all building together. And Maya, hopefully, is that glue where we stop being maxis and we start understanding that the only core value we need to also subscribe to is permissionless. And then decentralized privacy and other core values of crypto serve permissionlessness. And that's how we get to decentralized money.
Thanks. So in this vision, you can pick another blockchain if you need something from that blockchain, as long as the composability is there. In preparing for this conversation, we asked ourselves, do you need the programmability piece in Zcash? Is this something that is core to better connect to the rest, or is Zcash as it is right now, or let's say with ZSA, but no programmability? Is that sufficient to have most of the benefits of Zcash being this large pool of privacy and just do bridges to other blockchains? Yeah. So how do you guys see this big functionality that's not there, programmability? Is this something that has to be added, or I guess Bryan, you had, or maybe let's start with Christopher, but then Bryan, give us your angle.
Sorry, I didn't mean to front run you there. I'll keep it quick. I think this kind of ties back to the central question of mission. Kit, you started describing a mission of Zcash as Bitcoin but private, and boy, it would kind of be cool if we lived in the alternative timeline where there literally was Bitcoin, but private, like where the ZK snarks developed by Zcash just got merged into the Bitcoin protocol. Of course, that didn't happen. We don't live in that timeline. And I think
they tried to cram it. They tried to cram it with BitVM, but that's really, really difficult.
Right. Where perhaps, maybe Zcash could become, I don't know, some Bitcoin sidechain, or Bitcoin could become a Zcash sidechain and therefore allow Bitcoin, the asset, to be used with Zcash, the technology stack, which I think would be interesting. But I also think that the Zcash community faces a kind of question of what the identity in the project should be beyond just Bitcoin but private. Bitcoin but private is a mission and a pitch and a narrative, and really a unified product concept oriented around coupling an asset with privacy technology, right? That is what Zcash built. Zcash built an asset ZEC and built a blockchain for that asset, a community around that asset, which provides this world-class privacy technology, which has inspired so many projects, including the ones which I work on. But the world is different in 2025. And if Zcash wants to become some other thing, like a node in this network of composable blockchains, which provide different kinds of services, I think there's a pretty central product question of not just what can Zcash be used for, but also what value can Zcash provide to the rest of this composable network, right? That's a question that benefits from focus, benefits from unity, just in the same way that the mission of Bitcoin but private, I think, united Zcash for a long time and provided a clear set of both technical and product directions and existing metaphors that people were familiar with from the project Bitcoin, which was, of course, known, like Zcash's whole supply schedule, many aspects. Really, it's like Bitcoin, but add the ZK snarks on top, right? But now, at least it seems to me that Zcash is moving into a new era, but that we haven't yet developed, or at least I haven't yet heard, a really clear concept, product concept, mission concept of what Zcash seeks to be and become and provide in this future composable world.
Yeah, there was a moment in Bitcoin, the OGs remember, where there was the idea of colored coins. Do you remember those? Taking Satoshis and painting them in a color and saying, if you bring me back that Satoshi, I think that it's actually $1. And so you would follow those Satoshis around these little UTXOs that are special, and that was, and in a way you could say that assets on Zcash is this incremental jump of being able to issue assets on the Bitcoin but private, but it doesn't have the full-fledged power of an EVM or all those next level innovations that in 2025 everybody is already expecting. But Bryan, what do you think about it?
There we are. Yeah, it's a really interesting question to me, because I see a dichotomy between Zcash is super cryptographically secure money, and that is what it is, and that is proven with these documents and this careful study that's been done on the implementation. On the other hand, I feel that there is a place where support for developer community side extensions to the way that the protocol works is valuable, both for flexibility and for the pace of improvements. Like, for instance, Kit brought up this question of more flexible selective disclosure, right? Where you want to say something more complicated about the state of a node on the Zcash blockchain, right? And right now, in order to support that, you have to have some external infrastructure, or you need a full-blown update to the protocol. And for a protocol that is so focused on very careful, rigid security, it's slow, it's hard. And it's difficult for teams to engage with that process and get what they need within the protocol and within the community without stepping out to other sides of things. So that's like my like big question in my head, like is that worth it at the cost of like extra complexity in the protocol and a slightly less focused goal? My personal feeling, and this I feel is it's something that the community needs to come to decisions on and get buy-in on, right? My personal opinion is that there is a place for programmability. In particular, there's a really nice protocol specification that's called ZEC, ZEXE, that I like a lot, which is a theoretical setting, but it's been implemented, I think, in the LEO blockchain and various places, Mina protocol, at least in part. There's like different parts of this that have been implemented, but it is really compatible with the Zcash architecture in a lot of ways. It is still based on the basic idea of a commitment tree, which are used for note commitments in the case of Zcash, but in this protocol, it's kind of generic commitments to data associated with operations on the chain. And nullifiers are used for updates, and there's various things that you can do. And then it uses a generic programmable snark infrastructure so that the proofs are not just proof of proper transactions occurring on Zcash in the ways that are expected, but it's a proof of a snark circuit that an application can provide. And so it provides general logic capabilities without changing the basic underlying infrastructure of commitments, nullifiers, and snarks. And it fits really well with just the way that Zcash already works and doesn't require large updates. There are lots of details involved in getting this together. So I would not pose this as an incremental change to the protocol. There's a lot. You need some way of providing a domain-specific language to provide generic snark programmability. You need to study the infrastructure and provide the rigor that's expected from Zcash. It's a really significant project, and it requires consistent effort over a significant time by a team that is focused on it. So this is why I say that really community buy-in is essential if something like this were to be incorporated into the protocol. But I really think that the possibility is fascinating to me. It fits really well with what Zcash is right now, and I think that it would help to accelerate application development and adoption in some contexts by incorporating these capabilities. So.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I really think that any singular blockchain needs to focus on doing one thing pretty well, better than anyone. And then you can also do some other things now that you have a captive audience, some other lower hanging fruit that most people would like to use and have that hardware within the blockchain itself. I would caution against trying to do everything. And I think that this is a sentiment that has proven that is not right. In any engineering decision, there are trade-offs, right? Let's say you're making a chair. If you want to make it strong, you make it heavy. If you want to make it nice, you make it expensive. If you might want to make it comfortable, you make it easy to stain. I think it's a word. Sorry about my bad English. But we're always constantly looking at these trade-offs, and those trade-offs inherently yield diversity in design. You have a huge design space that blockchain is addressing, and that means that there will be more chains, because previously, people thought there would be the one chain to rule them all, and empirically we can see that hasn't been the case over the now what is it 17 years of crypto. We've seen the design space open up instead of coalesce around one or two designs. What that tells me is that there will be always a drastic diversity of chain designs, and how you stand out is by specializing in one thing, and then doing a few other things well, and then choosing the battles that you're not going to fight. And I think that's kind of rather than what should Zcash do, I would focus more on what is Zcash committing not to do, and why, because it's not compatible with the type of audience and use cases and
I have an anecdote on that, actually. So ZSA is a Zcash Shielded Asset is a place is a big leap forward in capability in Zcash, And as the Qedit, the team that is building it, was considering ZSA as a place of potential experimentation further down. So, you know, if you experiment on an asset that is not ZEC, you limit the potential bad outcomes if the experimentation doesn't succeed. So ZSA itself is very, very solid and reviewed and audited, etc. But at some point, we presented to the Zcash ecosystem the idea of bringing stablecoins to Zcash. And one of the things that stablecoins want is the ability to figure out what happened with the stablecoin when the user wants to redeem the stablecoin for, you know, fiat in a bank. And we proposed to research the direction of verifiable encryption to the issuer. Basically, if I put it bluntly, Zcash taking a sharp turn for this particular feature for ZSAs, with the ability for a user to self-snitch, to send the details of all their transactions to the issuer in a way, like encrypt to the issuer. And in that way, an issuer would come and create a stablecoin on Zcash. And we proposed that research, and the results were very, very clear. That's not compatible with the DNA of Zcash. We know what we want to say no to. Now, yes, the way it happened was not the most pleasant on the receiving side. Shout out to all those people on the forums participating in that. But it does show that this community does have a sort of center of gravity where it has a line. It forces actors like Qedit to seek other ways to add these type of compliance features outside of the protocol that don't affect directly the core protocol, but it does show a line that Zcash is fairly committed to. Henry, I just triggered you so strongly.
Not exactly. It's more that I have an observation here that is related, and it's that I think, and also is, you know, also a way for me to shoehorn in my answer to the question, which is I think that a big kind of gap for Zcash, and if I was going to point to one thing that is like make or break for Zcash, it is actually interop and interoperability with other chains, with other ecosystems. And this whole saga with the ZSAs and the stablecoins and whatever is kind of a microcosm of some of the issues that come from not having a good interop story, right? Because as I understand the design for ZSAs, the idea is that the sort of mint and redeem feature for the custom asset is done by some asset issuer who's issuing the asset on Zcash. And that's kind of unfortunate from a product perspective because it basically permissions the Zcash shielded pool to only have sort of approved assets. Like you have to go and get buy-in from whatever asset issuer. And on the other hand, if you had permissionless interop, then all of these sort of problems are kind of sidestepped. Like in Penumbra, the way that custom assets are minted is they're minted as a result of an IBC transfer from another chain into Penumbra. And so today, you can use USDC on Penumbra, and that works because USDC is issued on Noble, and you can bridge it over. You can also use USDY, and yes, there's like selective disclosure features that are already built as part of the web wallet that are going to be put into a sort of full sort of disclosure tool. But fundamentally, it solves the problem of having to coordinate each and every individual asset. I think the big unlock for Zcash that needs to happen is some kind of interop capability. And I think the current sort of blocker for that is the difficulty in other chains like reading the state of the Zcash chain. And this is, as a preview, like a thing that I will like harp on endlessly tomorrow on the proof of stake panel. But I think like the single most important consideration for any proof of stake version of Zcash is, are there good economically secure light clients for whatever future consensus protocol there is? Because that's the unlock that enables permissionless interop, and permissionless interop is the unlock that enables permissionless usage. And that, I think, is the big thing that people should focus on. And yeah, I'm totally happy to give opinions about it. Take my opinions or don't, whatever.
This is an informed opinion, because you showed this functioning on another system. I think the original interop was HTLC, right? Just the ability to pour an asset from one side to the other with the pre-image of a hash, just that basic ability to link value between one side of the transfer and the other. There's a proposal that's brewing specifically on finally getting Zcash to have HTLC capability that is on the table somewhere in the pipeline. It's like level 1 of the interop. But what you're describing, which is the issuance of assets as the result of something happening elsewhere, provably, and the other way around, which is reading what happened on Zcash in other blockchains, that's really the holy grail of connecting Zcash elsewhere. I think a step in that direction happened when we moved to Zebra and started working on Rust. That makes it even possible to dream the Zcash node verification happening in kind of like a ZKVM or something similar to that. Okay, so we explored a little bit what could be added to Zcash. I think let's start to close in on the big picture. And I think there I want to get back to you, James. This will all succeed if users don't need to think about any of the details and have what they expect just work. Can you describe a little bit what are we about to get with this integration to Brave?
Well, I may pull a little bit of this from the previous question. Interoperability, I think, is absolutely important. And if you were to ask someone who's like maximally invested in Bitcoin, they would say like, don't do anything else. And if anything else is getting any spotlight, then it's taking away from this global central currency. But going back to my first mention of, you really need privacy, I think, at the core, or you're going to have this massive cultural shift and privacy norms. Interoperability is key for growth here, and just this is like speculation. I told you I might have some. This is way out on a limb, but I think you're going to be seeing like and this goes to what Alex said as well. You're going to see blockchains really focus in on like what is their core strength. And trying to appeal to a specific solution, right? These are all kind of, you sort of abstract one level above primitives, and you've got blockchains kind of, what could you see being that main value? I think what'll happen is you may have like, the browser using AI, composing a user tailored smart wallet that takes tokens on a schedule, bridges them over, through some sort of bridge or Alex's bridge, whatever it is, into Zcash. You might have the browser scheduling, on the 15th of the month, you've got a notification saying like, mortgage due, you're paying it with Zcash. It's just shielding it. No one sees that. But you could have all these other layers. You could have the AI layer on Near. You could have other stuff happening on EVM, you're going to have all these blockchains more or less fulfilling a different need and being a tool in all of these solutions. But you really need something to pull it all together. And it's going to start with wallets. I think as a browser, we would start exploring how do we become key management? How do we sort of like create new protocols, communication protocols, so that we allow access to the device enclave, and like open it up, right? Being a singular wallet, it's not going to also solve the problem. I think as a whole industry, you're really relying on other people to build really, really great tools, not necessarily try to do everything.
Yeah, I think it's a great place to plug something happening at the end of this month. So Sophia is coming to Sophia. There's Sophia, the main cryptographer at Brave, is coming to Sophia, the city where we have ZK Proof 7 happening. And right before that, there's the Zcash Developer Conference. Right after that, there's Real World Crypto. And what Sophia is going to be talking about is adding another gesture to the browser, which is TLS notarization, using zero-knowledge proofs to demonstrate things from your session, your HTTPS session, a fact about yourself that you can then use to interact with blockchain contracts and show them that, I don't know, your balance in the bank account, or your age, or your number of stars on Uber or whatever. This place that most of us live in the browser. So the fact that Brave is blessing gestures that have a core cryptography in them is phenomenal. It's outstanding. I wish there was more Brave browsers out there, like small Brave, trying to take an example from that. And I think it will arrive once these capabilities are used and demonstrated. This will create a competition level that others will need to catch up. So we might end up with privacy, payment, and demonstration of facts using TLS notarization in all the browsers, thanks to the Brave movement of Brave. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, ZK Proof 7, check it out on zkproof.org, because it's really interesting. Does anyone want to add anything to this part? My last question is really, let's say, a very open one, which is a question of responsibility. We all are practitioners of a very, very strong set of tools. These privacy techniques are almost give us asymmetric power. We give the users the ability to do things without having to answer anyone. Just the math is allowing our users to do a lot. It comes with responsibility, but also we are as a community of builders, we are the ones that are capable of bringing these tools to the users. And if those users need the tools because, let's say, their governments are becoming difficult to work with, then it's on us to try to figure out how to bring those tools the best we can, and as adequate to the situation as possible. So this broad question is, do you feel that that this destiny requires more privacy? And if so, why? What I'm aiming at is just understanding why privacy is important, and are we are we doing it the right way? Go ahead.
So the first thing to kind of understand why we're on the right side, I think, is freedom is a bedrock to prosperity. As we've seen societies be more and more free, they become also more and more prosperous. And you can compare the levels of freedoms or lack of freedoms in any given country, and you can then derive from it their level of prosperity. You look at Switzerland, which is one of the freest countries in the world, and you'll see that from it has derived prosperity. Now, the thing about freedom, though, is that it's long-term prosperity, not short-term. And short-term, we can be tempted to trade freedom for security. But as soon as we start making those compromises, the problem with security is that it's usually a honeycomb. It's something that's controlled by someone or policed by someone, and that can be conquered and abused later on. So the thing about not having that trade-off happen, with freedom, you actually make societies be more equal, and not through equal outcomes, but through equal opportunity. So the problem with freedom, though, is that privacy and permissionlessness are two key ingredients to have freedom happen. Because what freedom does is give power to the many. The more free a society is, the better they can shield themselves from the few bullies in the neighborhood. And if you take that privacy away, you actually give an edge to those who seek to abuse power. So that's why I believe privacy is so important. If you believe the majority of people are good, which is an assumption that you have to agree or not with, I believe it to be so. If you go, to a party, you don't need someone to police the party to have a good time, and most people will behave. Most people are good, and I see that happen when you go to the mall, when you go and travel. Most people are good. So if you believe most people to be good, giving them all privacy actually yields a prosperous result over the long run. So that's why I believe, yes, there will be people that abuse the street, but that doesn't mean the people building the street are bad. It just means that some people will give it bad use, but you empowered movement, freedom of movement, to also the 99% of people that are good. So even in an utilitarian argument, you're objectively doing good. But even if you start looking more at the morality of it, just empowering those 99% of people against that 1% of people that will abuse things is a net good. So that's why I believe privacy to be important.
Thank you. Kit.
Yeah, I just add to that. I think in my mind there is, as I'm explaining to people why I do this, and I think of these bits of privacy as little droplets of power, and we, sure, they're powerful tools, but we only get a little droplet to go with what we have. And when I send a signal message to somebody and I then don't get an advertisement on my browser about that message I just sent, I'm just like, that's a little drop of power against Google advertising to me, or a political statement that I don't want tracked back to me. And these are little drops of power that we all have, and we can exchange. And I think what we're doing is we're making those tools for people where everyone can just have that, and there can be abuse, just like what Aaluxx is saying, but by and large, people are just trying to live their lives, and also it's very democratic in that or it disperses power, right? So if everybody had these little drops of power, then somebody doesn't have the whole reservoir, who can and how to say, I think with I don't know, this just jumping into a little controversy here with what happened with ZSAs and the stable coins is that I think the problem was that stablecoin issuer got to put in the setting that says, okay, everybody who uses this stablecoin, your stuff can be read, but you don't have to use this stablecoin. And if instead, I think the Zcash way, and maybe other people would disagree, but I think the Zcash way would be we have the stablecoin, and each user gets that drop of power to say it is, and maybe there's a law that says to all the users in this country, they need to disclose this, and just like I disclosed things to the IRS in the United States of America, I do, but it's this, I am the discloser. The power is with me to do that. And that's, and, you know, so often with, you know, these sneak and peek, what do you call them? Searches, you know, where the feds just want to look in and take a look without anyone knowing. I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with search warrants, you know, where there's a judge involved and we have a system to do this personally. You know, maybe some people do, but there's this element of personal power, and I believe that's the important thing. So,
Christopher, thank you.
Yeah, I would just add to what has been already said that I think it's easy to kind of back ourselves into the implicit rhetorical frame of looking at the world in the past, you know, decade or two, which consists of large-scale surveillance systems, and trying to justify why we need to add privacy to that, because like your rights are being violated, and you know, we, the cypherpunks, are here to add some privacy and protect you. And that's not wrong, but I also think in some ways it's not necessary. Privacy is not, you know, the metaphor of privacy, I find, at least in talking to, I don't know, regular people, can create a lot of confusion because a lot of people associate privacy with an act of hiding. And an act of hiding makes sense in a world where, frankly, light rays are bouncing around. When, you know, you want privacy about what you're doing in your kitchen, you need to pull the blind shut, right? You need to engage in some kind of action to create privacy, right? But that metaphor doesn't apply to digital technology. By default, your information is on your computer. It's wherever you created it until you choose to send it elsewhere. So what the kind of large-scale surveillance systems and other services that eventually ended up being bundled with surveillance-based business models have done is couple these choices. They've made it the case that either you can use Google or use Facebook or use the Ethereum blockchain and disclose, well, in the case of your Ethereum, all of your data to everyone. In the case of Google or Facebook, you know, all of your data to Google or Facebook or whoever they might sell it to, or, you know, sub-agencies at the US government acting without court orders or whatever. But there's nothing natural about this arrangement. Like it's not some natural outcome of what technology does. Technology can do lots of other things. It has little precedent in human social affairs. You know, most human social systems, including financial systems, including like credit money, including all kinds of money, have had basically privacy by default up to and including the present, including the modern banking system, right? And now the modern banking system still grants a degree of centralized surveillance power to state apparatus and state apparatus, you know, to corporations that is new in human history, but it's still much less than transparent blockchains. So I think another way to approach this question that at least I have found helpful is not to even attempt to try to justify why we should add privacy to the weird, wonky, you know, surveillance-oriented system that is currently popular, but rather talk about how humans have used money and credit and finance and messaging for millions of years and in social groups and patterns that people intuitively understand. You know, you don't tell everything to everyone you talk to. That would create a lot of chaos. And talk about how building the ability to selectively disclose information into digital technology is just making that technology work for people in the way that people have expected to be able to use it, frankly, quite reasonably forever.
Excellent point. I would frame that and post that directly on the as a good summary. Okay, I think we reached our time. I want to thank each and every one of you for a really interesting conversation, and for people that are watching us and have questions. I think that the Whova allows to send questions to each of our participants, so you're free to follow up there. We're listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.